So thank you, Tina. Thank you so much for joining in for this one-on-one exclusive virtual interview. Uh, I want to share with all the viewers that Tina Vas is the Senior Vice President, Global Human Resources for HGS. So today we'll talk to Tina about skilling, upskilling, learning techniques, the new learning techniques, and how evolution and innovation in learning can go together. So without any delay, I would like to start this interview with you, Tina. I have my first question, and I would like to ask you, what are some of the actions SGS have taken to rejuvenate the workforce management methods to make it more impactful?
So, Abid, thank you for that question. And rejuvenate is actually the right word, in my opinion, because we've had a couple of workforce management techniques that have worked for us. We've actually done better because in the midst of a crisis, an organization had to change on multiple fronts, right? So, one of the easy answers to this is addressing the change with technology. While that might have seemed like a big leap, frankly, HGS was on its way to that journey either way. While the pandemic was an unknown, there were some clear knowns from a business perspective in terms of digitization and automation and so on. So that we did well. I think you always have room to do better, faster, learn quicker. So we are learning as we go, but the technology and the transition to a work from home from that perspective worked out okay. What I think we really did in addition to this to make sure we were successful during this time is threefold really. One was making sure we talk very often to our people about what the leadership vision is, what the direction is, where do we think we are going as an organization, how is the pandemic affecting us positively, negatively, being very transparent, over communicating, if I can say so, because this was a time of high insecurity and we had definitely the need to do that. The second thing which we did right was we equipped our managers in meeting both operational and emotional needs of their team, helping them feel strengthened, coaching them on what they should do to manage this transition. And lastly, we created a lot of new engagement methods. Now, when I say new, these existed, but we put a lot of steam into them. So we talk to people very often through employee surveys, getting a pulse of what's working, what's not, and then course correcting it. Learning became very critical. E-learning took a big leap during this time. We managed to find our ways to keep connected with employees and get their feedback. If you ask me, one thing that I don't think we did well was learn how to have fun and do those whole employee engagement and fun activities and events. We are trying, but I don't think we have nailed it yet. So that's where we are.
Second question, Tina, how do companies decode new age learning techniques to furnish employees for a more comprehensive digital transformation?
So, in my view, Abid, this is an important one because your learner profile has also changed over years, right? So, I think I have seen a very, if you ask me, a positive transition in terms of learning techniques through all these years, because while I have been an implementer of the old methods myself, there was a part of me that was never convinced. It was like one of those things where I felt we have to do it. I'm talking about the days of forced learning, 40 hours of learning. Corporates did a lot of this, right? So I think traveling from the forced to attend corporate training programs to now having a flexibility where the steering wheel is in the hands of the employee and the employee gets to pick the pace, pick the content. I think that's very empowering. And today's learner wants that, right? You could not deny him or her that kind of an opportunity. So I think having that where you choose your pace, you choose when, where, how, what, I think that's really important. The downside to something like that is you could have a very hands off approach where people are just doing their own thing and organizations are not partnering to make that a meaningful experience. Because while an employee may want to chart out their own journey, there's got to be involvement from the company on what aspects of those would be helpful for me as an organization. So trying to find that balance is something that we have tried to do through learning administration tools and techniques in which we bring it all together. The other thing I feel, which, you know, one of the leaders of the businesses I manage, he introduced this word early on, and I love it, is to reward effectiveness of learning. And what I mean when I say that is, we are not even measuring what your score was on the test that you took. We are measuring how did whatever you learn or what you choose to learn through whatever method you choose, right? How did that make a difference at work? How did you come back and teach other people what you think you're an expert at? How did you impress a customer through demonstrating that in your work? I think these are methods that we are using to stay relevant. So if I have to put it in a nutshell, guiding the journey, pointing them in the direction of opportunity and learning paths, providing meaningful and intuitive methods of augmenting and directing learning, but in all of this, leaving the control with the employee, that's been at the heart of how we have used the new age learning techniques.
Okay. You mentioned about learning and scope of learning and how you are doing it. I would like to ask you, since what I believe that learning leads to evolution and innovation, both. But as an organization, the organization needs to keep an equilibrium on both the things. So how should organization balance evolution and innovation in learning together? What do you think?
The evolution, if you ask me, has been how your backdrop or your environment has changed, and that is basically limited to so many external factors, right? Today, our attention spans have become shorter. We want everything to be very personalized. You don't, you are today when you go online to shop, they know what is your buying pattern and they will direct that content to you, right? From that same perspective, if you look at the learner is a very evolved, mature, and a demanding person today. So innovation has to, in my view, keep track of that and be in sync. So the methods which we have used, if you ask me, is one, we focused on collaborative learning. We believe that this whole distance that e-learning creates um, needs a level of touch, and collaborative learning has made that possible. And it's also helping people kind of encourage each other to stay on track on that journey. It helps someone become a teacher, somebody become a student. It just makes it more meaningful. The other thing we are focused on, Abid, is active learning. What active learning is basically the learner having the control, like I explained to you, and using all the means he or she has, but taking the control on directing or powering their journey. Because that is, if you do look at any studies, learning can only work when the student is ready. The other thing, like I told you, we have differentiated interventions. If a certain group of people tells us, listen, we want to do a community thing, we want to follow it in this format, we want to end it with certifications, the majority of us agree, this is what we want to do, we are open to that. There is a budget, there is an administration, but we are also giving a lot of flexibility to make that happen. And then we are creating conducive learning environments by giving people a combination of smart e-learning tools, coupled with trainers, creating learning gurus for the few areas that we believe are centers of excellence that HGS wants to invest in, and giving them the power to actually curate that whole journey. Also making them responsible in a sense, Abid, for outcomes of their, of their fraternity that they're taking responsibility of. And one other thing, if I may say so, it's a trivial thing, but it's important. Is we focused on any interaction we do that it be bite-sized, that you don't do too much, you don't make it very heavy. Do a little, but do it consistently, and then try to find a way to kind of rope it all in together. That's been helpful for us. So, if you ask me, that's how we have managed the journey of an evolving learner with that of coupling whatever innovation the industry offers you to make it a win-win.
Okay, you mentioned where HGS wants to invest. Where do you want to invest, if I can ask you personally? In
In terms of learning, despite being in HR for so long, Abid, I want to um, increase my investment in handling the emotional quotient. I have found, especially with the long distance work like this, that that's very important to be able to look for signs, to be able to look for signs of stress in people, look for signs of resistance, be able to coach and support and have a nurturing work environment that um, equips me to do that. The other area which I'm trying to learn, and I'm not necessarily doing a course or whatever on this, is I'm trying to see how technology in HR is going to help us make us do our work faster. So I find unconventional ways to learn this. I may not necessarily go and do a course on AI or automation, but I talk to these new, upcoming companies when they have an interesting offering. I like to look at them and see what is it that you're doing differently to solve the same problem we've had all these years, right? That's one way I try to keep abreast. And the other area, if you ask me, I'm learning might seem very transactional, but I think very important. I like to have strong operations. So I'm trying to myself learn a little bit of project management techniques so I can manage, a global workforce effectively. I have people across the globe reporting to me, so I want to make sure I have a consistent approach. I have a strong governance. So if you ask me, these are my top three learning needs.
okay, that's definitely nice, and I think it's very important as well, being a people leader. So I'll come to my last question. With everything, maybe it learning, there is a thought process behind it. But I would like to understand how important is it to measure ROI in learning and development, because the end in mind is to have the ROI. There it should give some output. So how important is it to measure ROI in L&D?
See, I think it's important to measure ROI. And ROI today, pretty much everything we do, Abid, we are looking for an ROI, right? At an individual level or at a corporate level, that's absolutely essential. We are living in a world of instant gratification, certain outcomes. You don't even plan a movie viewing unless you see the number of likes or rating of that movie. So, from that perspective, making sure that if I'm committing to this learning journey, now I'm talking about as an individual, what am I getting out of it will be a question. As a corporate, if I go to the business leaders and say, I want X amount of investment and so tools, again, the question is, what are you going to get to me at the end of it? What I think it will need patience and will need a little bit of evolution, if I may say so, um, is how do you measure ROI? What is ROI? It should not be so myopic and silly that you lose the big picture. It needs to be broad and evolved. So if you say that because I invested in this training, I will look at what score the trainer got and decide the outcome, that would be myopic in my view. So I'll try and use examples, right, to give you a view. Let's recently we did a session at HGS on handling stress at work. Um, you know, work stress pretty much has gone up for the whole industry with this model. Same was the case with us. So we handled a session. And as I was talking to the leaders, we were debating how do we measure ROI? Is it the trainer score? Is it the number of people who turn up for the following training? Because when they went away, they felt it helped them and they want to come back? Is it how much people participated in the class, or was there long silences? Or, the most important question, right? Did we have a drop in attrition because stress levels dropped? Even if you think of that as a very indicative and the Kirkpatrick model, the outcome factor, it is tricky because your attrition could drop because of a couple of other things as well. So I believe hard to measure. We should be a little willing to learn and evolve this as we go and not be myopic, but certainly something we should do. Um, at HGS, in parts of our business, the way we are running learning is, like I mentioned previously too, it's effectiveness of learning. So we look at the end of the year, right? How many new areas that we wanted to get into are we actually doing work? That basically proves, is all your learning taking you to the point you want to get to? I probably gave you a roundabout answer to this, but it's not a straightforward one. So really, that's my response on ROI.
Yes, ROI is necessary, because if you have something to gauge some parameter, it will definitely help to work effective in that manner. So I think thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tina, for sharing your thoughts about your personal learning as well, not only from the industry per se or SGS per se, but your personal thought process as well. Thank you once again.